some rooms are never meant to be opened. Behind certain walls lie secrets that were buried for a reason. But what happens when curiosity breaks that barrier? This is the story of the Forgotten Room, and why no one who entered it ever returned the same. Lena had always dreamed of having her own place. After years of living with noisy roommates and cramped shared flats, she finally found what seemed like the perfect deal: a cheap apartment in an old building downtown. The landlord handed her the keys almost too quickly, his hands trembling slightly. "Not many people stay long," he muttered, eyes shifting away as if he had said too much. The building itself looked worn and tired. Its bricks were weathered by decades of rain, and some windows were cracked like glass veins. The hallways smelled of mildew, and the dim yellow lights flickered as if struggling to stay alive. Still, Lena was happy. This was independence, a new start. Her apartment was small, but livable. 1 bedroom, 8. A living room with creaky wooden floors, a narrow kitchen, and a hallway that seemed longer than it should be. At first, she thought little of it, until she noticed something unusual. On the left side of the hallway, the wallpaper looked fresher, brighter than the rest of the walls. The plaster underneath felt strange when she tapped it, hollow in a way that suggested there was space behind it, almost like another room. That night, as Lena unpacked, the building seemed to come alive. Every step echoed, every pipe groaned, but around midnight, she froze. From the strange wall came a sound light at first, then clearer. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Her breath caught. She pressed her ear against the wall. Scratching stopped instantly, replaced by silence that rang. In her ears, she pulled back quickly, her skin crawling. The next morning, curiosity got the better of her. She mentioned the wall to her neighbor, an elderly woman with sharp eyes, who lived across the hall. The woman's face drained of color the moment Lena asked. "Don't touch that wall," the neighbor whispered firmly. "That used to be a room, but they sealed it decades ago." "Why would they do that?" Lena asked. The old woman leaned closer, her voice dropping. "Because people who entered never came back." Lena laughed nervously, trying to shake off the chill her words caused. Just an old story, she told herself. But deep inside, unease grew like a seed. That night, as she lay in bed, she heard it again. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Then a whisper. It spoke her name. Lena tried to convince herself it was only the pipes, or maybe her imagination playing tricks after moving into a creepy old building. But the next nights only made things worse. Every evening, when the halls grew quiet and the city's hum faded into silence, the scratching returned. At first, it was faint, like a mouse trapped behind the wall. But soon it grew louder, more deliberate, as if nails dragged slowly across wood. Then came the whispers. At midnight, lying in her bed with the lights off, she heard them, faint voices. Leaking through the sealed wall, didn't sound like one person, more like several, murmuring together. Their words were blurred, but sometimes, in between the static of whispers, she caught her name. Lena. She sat up, her heart thudding. "Hello?" She whispered back, her throat dry. The voices stopped instantly. The silence was worse than the sound. The next morning, Lena went back to her neighbor, the elderly woman across the hall. "I keep hearing things," she admitted. Scratching voices. The woman's hands trembled as she clutched her door. "I told you, that room should never have been touched. Once long ago it was opened. People went inside, none returned. After that, the building owners sealed it forever. Who were they?" Lena pressed, but the woman shut her door firmly. Leaving Lena in the hallway alone, that night, Lena stayed awake on purpose. She wanted to prove to herself it wasn't real. She sat on the couch, staring at the wall. The clock ticking past midnight. At exactly 3 a.m., the scratching began. Louder this time. She leaned forward, clutching a blanket tightly. Then the whispers started again. Clearer now, words curling through the air like smoke. "We are here. We are waiting." Her skin prickled. Then faintly, her own voice echoed. Back at her, "Let me out." Lena's eyes widened. she whispered to herself. Oh, that wasn't me. But from the hollow wall, her voice came again, exactly the same tone, the same trembling pitch. Lena, let me out. Her blood ran cold. She stumbled back, covering her ears. But no matter how hard she tried, the whispers seeped into her mind. It was no longer just scratching. The room was speaking. For the next few days, Lena couldn't focus on anything else. Even when she tried to distract herself with work or unpacking, her eyes always drifted back to that long stretch of wall in the hallway. She began to dread nightfall, knowing that scratching and whispers would return. Finally, her curiosity overpowered her fear. One afternoon, while sunlight streamed weakly through the window, she picked up a hammer from a toolbox she had barely unpacked. She stood before the suspicious wall, heart racing, palms sweating. At first, she only tapped lightly. Hollow. Always hollow. Then, gathering her courage, she slammed the hammer against the plaster. Dust filled the air as chunks of wall began to crumble. Beneath the wallpaper and plaster was old, dark wood. The more she chipped away, the clearer it became. It wasn't just a wall, it was a door. Her pulse quickened. The wooden surface was burned around the edges, blackened as if scorched long ago. In the center was a rusty iron handle, untouched by time. It felt icy under her fingertips, sending a shiver up her arm. She should have stopped. She should have left it sealed. But she didn't. That night, the scratching grew frantic, desperate, as if whatever was inside could sense the barrier weakening. The whispers turned into voices, overlapping, pleading, commanding. Open it! Open the door! Free us! Lena covered her ears and backed away, but the voices followed her into her dreams. She dreamed of standing in front of the same door. But this time, it was wide open, leading into a black void where countless pale hands reached out. When she awoke, the apartment was freezing. Her breath formed clouds in the air. She tried to convince herself it was only a dream, only her imagination. But when she walked into the hallway, she froze. The wallpaper she had torn was peeled back further than she remembered, as if something from the inside had been pushing against it. The door's outline was clear now, impossible to ignore. She stared at the rusty handle. In the silence, she thought she heard a faint giggle, low and mocking. Lena stumbled back, whispering to herself, "It's not real. It can't be real." But the door was there, waiting. And deep inside, she knew one day soon she would open it. Lena told herself she wouldn't touch the door again. She promised she would call the landlord, report the damage, maybe even move out. But the building had other plans. That night, at exactly 3 a.m., the air in her apartment grew unnaturally cold. The creaking pipes fell silent, and even the city noises outside seemed to vanish. Lena sat upright in her bed, heart pounding. She could feel that the wall was awake. Slowly, she stepped into the hallway. The air was heavy, thick, like the whole building was holding its breath. The door she had uncovered loomed in the shadows, its rusty handle glinting faintly in the dark. The scratching began again, louder than ever. But this time it wasn't random. It was rhythmic, almost like someone was knocking from the other side. Knock, pause, knock, pause. Then the voices came. Not whispers, not clear, desperate words. "Let us out. We are waiting. Open the door." Lena clutched her chest, every nerve screaming at her to run. But her feet carried her closer. She pressed her hand against the wood. It felt alive, pulsing, faintly like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the handle jerked violently beneath her fingers. She screamed and stumbled back as the door shook, rattling against the frame, though no one was touching it. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the lights flickered. Wildly, she grabbed her phone and shone its flashlight on the door. For the briefest second, she saw faces pale, alive faces pressed against the wood from the inside. Mouths opening and closing in silent screams. The door stopped shaking, the apartment fell silent, and the faces faded. Was clear, whatever was in there was awake now. The next morning, Lena tried to leave the apartment. She stuffed clothes into a bag and rushed to the front door. But when she turned the knob, it wouldn't move. She pulled harder, but the door was locked tight, though she hadn't locked it. Her stomach dropped. She ran to the windows, But outside was only darkness thick, endless black, not the street or city she knew. She turned slowly toward the hallway. The sealed room's door was open just a crack. A thin sliver of darkness seeped out. Crawling along the floor like smoke, Lena stood frozen in the hallway, staring at the door that now hung slightly open. A thin line of darkness leaked through, thicker than a shadow, curling across the floor like smoke searching for her feet. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to do anything but open it wider, and yet her hand moved on its own. Slowly, trembling, she touched the rusty handle. It was ice cold, burning her skin like frostbite. She pulled, and the door groaned open with a long, painful creak. The room beyond was impossibly dark. Her phone's flashlight should have cut through the shadows, but it only illuminated a small circle, swallowed quickly by blackness. The air smelled of damp soil and old iron. As she stepped inside, the temperature dropped sharply. Her breath fogged in front of her. She tried to back away, but the door behind her slammed shut with a force that rattled her bones. "Hello?" Her voice cracked in the silence. At first, nothing answered. Then the whispers returned, louder now, surrounding her from every direction. They weren't muffled anymore. They were inside the room with her. Shapes moved in the shadows. Pale figures with hollow eyes pressing closer. Their bodies flickered like broken film, vanishing and reappearing. One stepped forward, its face inches from hers. It looked like her neighbor, the old woman from across the hall, but twisted skin gray, mouth stretched into a smile that didn't belong. "Lena," it croaked. "Join us." Her knees buckled. She stumbled backward, tripping over something. On the floor, shining her light down, she froze. There were objects scattered everywhere: shoes, bags, glasses, even a cracked phone. Items belonging to people who had once lived here. People who had never come back. Her chest tightened as realization struck. This was where they had all vanished. The sealed room wasn't empty, it was a trap, a cage that fed on anyone foolish enough to enter. The figures drew closer, circling her, their whispers turning into a terrible chant. "Stay. Stay. Stay." Lena bolted toward the door, clawing at the handle. It wouldn't budge. The chanting grew louder, shaking the room. Her flashlight flickered. For a split second, she saw her own reflection in the darkness. Only it wasn't her. It was smiling, and it was standing on the other side of the door. Lena's hand shook violently as she clawed at the handle, but the door wouldn't move. Her flashlight flickered again, sputtering like a dying star. When the beam steadied, her heart stopped. Her reflection was there, not in glass, not in A. Mirror butt standing across the room. It looked exactly like her. Same hair, same clothes, same trembling hands. Only the face was wrong. Its smile was wide, too wide, stretching until it seemed to split its cheeks. Finally, it whispered, in a voice identical to hers, "You opened the door. I've been waiting." Lena backed away, her breath quick and shallow. "You're not real. You're not me." The reflection tilted its head, imitating her every movement but slightly delayed, as though mocking her. "I am you. I am the you that belongs here." The shadows stirred around them. Figures pressed closer, their hollow eyes fixed on Lena, but none touched her. It was as if they were waiting for the reflection to act suddenly. The reflection lunged. Lena screamed, dropping her phone. The light spun across the floor, casting twisted shadows on the walls. She stumbled backward, tripping over a pile of shoes left by the missing tenants. The reflection grabbed her wrist, its grip icy and strong, pulling her toward the center of the room. Lena fought, twisting and kicking. "Let go," she cried, but her voice echoed strangely, as if the room itself mocked her. The reflection leaned closer, its face inches from hers. "You don't belong out there anymore. It's my turn now, you. We'll stay here." Her stomach dropped. That was the truth. The whispers, the scratching, the faces, they weren't just haunting her, they were preparing her. The room didn't want to kill her. It wanted to keep her, to replace her. The reflection dragged her toward the far wall. But it wasn't a wall anymore. In the flickering light, It rippled like black water, showing faint images of her apartment, her hallway, her life outside. "No," she screamed, digging her nails into the floorboards. But the reflection only laughed, pulling harder. "Don't worry," it hissed. "I'll take good care of your life." The last thing Lena saw before the light died completely was her reflection stepping into the rippling walls, smiling in triumph while she was pulled deeper into the dark. The door slammed shut behind her. The next morning, the building was quiet. Too quiet. The air in the hallway felt heavy. The faint smell of dust and mold lingered stronger than ever. The elderly woman across the hall opened her door carefully. As she always did, she looked at Lena's apartment, half expecting to hear footsteps or see her rushing off to work. But the door stood wide open, the room inside eerily still. Curiosity pulled her closer. "Lena?" she called softly. No answer. She stepped into the apartment. Everything looked normal. Boxes stacked in the corner, dishes in the sink, clothes folded on a chair. But the atmosphere was wrong. The kind of wrong that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. Then she saw it. The wall in the hallway. The sealed door was gone, hidden again by fresh wallpaper. No cracks, no plaster, no handle, just smooth surface, as if no one had ever touched it. The woman gasped. She knew what that meant. The room had claimed another before she could leave. Movement caught her eye. Standing in the kitchen doorway was Lena, or at least someone who looked exactly like her. "Morning," Lena said cheerfully, her smile a little too wide, her eyes a little too bright. The old woman's heart sank. She whispered a prayer under her breath and backed away, shutting her door quickly. She knew better than to ask questions. That night, other tenants heard something strange. Not the usual scratching or whispers, those had stopped completely. The building was silent now, eerily peaceful. But some swore they saw Lena walking the halls at odd hours, her steps too slow, her head tilting at unnatural angles when she thought no one was watching. One tenant claimed he saw her reflection in a window when she passed by. Only the reflection didn't move the same way she did. Weeks later, the apartment was listed again. The landlord smiled nervously as he showed a young couple around. He avoided looking at the hallway wall, though sweat glistened on his brow. "Nice place," the couple said. "Yes," the landlord muttered quickly. "Very quiet." And in the silence, deep behind the wallpaper, faint scratching began again. Scratch, scratch, scratch.